Hello and welcome. I am Exolite and this is my channel. Today I'm going to tell you about the White Bluff Screamer. It's a good one. Go get a blanket, something to drink, and snuggle on in. Lock your doors. Before we get started, as usual, if you are not already subscribed, please do so. It's free and it helps my channel, and you'll be notified when my content goes live. Also, please give this video a thumbs up. As you know by now, it helps the algorithm bring people to my channel. Are you ready? Let's get started. If you lived in a neighborhood with a monster, we're talking the cryptid kind, would you want to be informed about it? Of course you would, preferably before you moved there. And that was where having local newspapers came in very handy. Besides reports on local politics and high school sports, they kept America's small towns updated on the goings-on of the nearest scary creatures. Unfortunately, those bake sale stories and creature stories and small town newspapers have gone the way of the dinosaurs. But the monsters are still with us. Luckily, the good folks of Tennessee, particularly around Johnson City, the home of East Tennessee State University, the Buccaneers, have the East Tennessean to keep them informed on local scary things. This week's volunteer state cryptid is the White Bluff Screamer. A loud, as you can imagine, and legendary monster that could be the ghost of a jilted wife, or it could be a shape-shifting creature escaped from a traveling circus train. Urban legends or real monsters. Fortunately, the East Tennessean is here to fill us in. There are, of course, a variety of explanations for the cryptid, but the known information, the facts that people know, is that they regularly hear screaming in the area. It might be hard to divulge specifics about this monster because apparently the area has multiple monsters. Stories from the area range from werewolves and werewolf hunters to banshees and ghosts. Real estate agents in White Bluff, Tennessee, might want to steer their prospective homebuyers away from any stores selling copies of the East Tennessean for a while to avoid exposing them to the possibility that the house they want to buy might be attacked by, I don't know, a werewolf, a screaming banshee, or whatever the White Bluff Screamer, sometimes called the White Screamer, actually is. The search for the origin of this monster faces multiple paths. The first is the more traditional house haunted by a screaming murderous spirit type of story. The house is all fallen in, but it's still there. White Bluff's unofficial town historian, Tony England, tells the Tennessean of the tale, now over 100 years old, of a couple and their 7 children living deep in the hollers of Trace Creek in White Bluff. They told neighbors they were terrified many nights by screams and howls from the nearby woods. Finally, at wit's end, the husband took his gun and went into the woods to hunt for the screamer, only to hear screams coming from inside the house he had just left. When he returned, he found his children and wife dead. According to most versions, they were torn to shreds. White Bluff was a small town in 1920. It began in 1806 as a fort, which eventually became a Civil War-era Union Army encampment. The White Bluff Iron Forge gave locals a place to work and the town soon had several mercantile businesses and a planing mill. And then, lucky for them, it also got a screamer. Locals began hearing something or a pained something screaming at night in the vicinity of the nearby woods. It soon picked up a name, La Lorena, or the White Screamer. The reports all said that it sounded like a crazed woman, and hearing the constant nightly screams could lead a person down the same path to insanity. As the legend grew, witnesses who were brave enough to investigate the screams claimed they saw a white, misty form appear, and just before the distressful screams would begin again. According to some versions, when the witnesses found that their family and friends did not believe them, they would take them to the spot where the white apparition appeared, and the ground would be charred. Because the screams sounded female, many thought it was a banshee of Irish mythology. However, a banshee was not generally the cause of death. It was more of a harbinger carrying a wailing message that someone was about to die. There were other less well-known stories of people hearing the screams and then being torn to bits by some monstrous beast. Those, in turn, became associated with the legend of the shape-shifting werewolf or werewolf-like creature similar to another local monster, the creature of Werewolf Springs. That one follows another well-known path, the circus train, which has an accident, and some wild animals escaped. Tony England had interviewed a local resident named Fred Stacy. He was 95 years old in 2018. He said he was one of many who believed in the escaped animal legend, and he has heard the screams which he thinks are being made by a werewolf. Now that theory would match the tales which end in people being killed and their bodies ripped apart, but it doesn't go along with the mist or the charred marks on the ground. A third path to the origin of the White Bluff Screamer is actually a side branch on the story of the man who lost his wife and several children. In alternate tales, the man returned to his house and saw an apparition of a woman dressed in white. That could be a banshee, but it could also be an American version of the White Lady stories from Europe, of the woman who catches her husband cheating on her, takes out her revenge by killing the children, and then kills herself. Is the White Bluff Screamer such a white lady, taking out more revenge on cheating men by killing a second family? Was the father in this story a philanderer? None of the tales mention that, but it is certainly a possibility, and one that other women in White Bluff who suspect their own husbands of cheating on them would relish the chance to scare them with. So, what is the White Bluff Screamer? Well, it could be one of the many real animals that reside in the hollers of Tennessee around White Bluff. It could be high school kids having fun, preying on the fears of the older residents. It could be a vengeful spirit. It could be a shape-shifting animal. It could be a werewolf. What it most definitely is, at least according to the editorial page of the East Tennessean, is a reason to be very afraid and cautious when house hunting in White Bluff. In fact, this is a direct quote. This area is a popular area for cryptids, and a quick internet search for the White Bluff Screamer brings up many news articles, podcasts, and YouTube videos. I would encourage people to investigate it and the surrounding area more. So, have you ever heard the screamer? Have you ever been in this area? Would you want to move into White Bluffs? Leave me a comment below and we'll discuss it. Thank you for coming to my channel, and good night.